Hey, I'm Jadamin.
And I'm Latresa, and welcome to Hey Sista podcast.
As the name suggests, we're sisters.
Not like best friend sisters or like cute outfit sisters.
But like came from the same womb sisters.
And the same.
Well, you get the picture. Not only are we sisters, but we are both entrepreneurs living and working in one of the most fast-paced,
competitive,
and expensive cities in America.
Native to the 717, we are young, creative professionals,
sharing our stories as we journey through the ups and downs,
ins and outs,
and thicks and thins of life in New York City.
Hey.
We are back at it again.
Hey Sista
podcast. Podcast. You know what it is.
Episode 2. We in the building.
Dose.
Cheer.
So we got so much great feedback from episode 1. We want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen in.
Yes.
To send your comments, to send your love, to send your support. It was so encouraging. We got our first patron, y'all.
Yay! Woo! And if you don't know what we're talking about, you have to head over to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Hey Sista with an A podcast. So that's patreon.com/Hey Sista podcast. There's so many cool behind the scenes footage there. We have our work sessions on there, how we brainstorm to come up with what we're going to talk about. We have like a lot of behind the scenes videos of our journeys and just like really fun photo shoot stuff. And it's just a great time. So head on over if you haven't checked it out yet.
Yes, please do, because it is awesome and we don't want you to miss out. So this episode is about the money.
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 Hey.
Money.
Money.
You know.
Money.
Get it, girl.
No, I got a little too carried away.
I know. Okay, so this time we're going to talk about money. We touched on it a little bit in the last episode, but we are going to dive deep into the ins and outs of crowdfunding and grant writing.
Yes.
But not the boring side, you know. We got to make it interesting. We got to spice it up.
I don't think anything about our journeys have been boring, honestly. Like,
I don't think so either.
One of the comments we got from the last episode was that our stories of starting a business were so different. She was like, it's so different than anything I've ever heard before.
We keep it real. We got to.
And it's just our experiences.
Yeah.
So, you know, grateful to have had them and to have made it through them and still be every day like making it through them, but just having an opportunity to share what we're learning and experiencing. We've got a lot of people saying that the podcast thus far has been very inspirational. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. So we talked about our financial struggles last time. I lost my job. Latresa left her bartending job.
Yes.
So first we're going to touch on our views of funding and what that looked like when we first started.
I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but when I left my restaurant job, my goal was to become a full-time actress. Having a production company was nowhere on my mind. And when I left my restaurant job, I had no savings. So I literally had the check I was going to get the following week after I left.
Wow.
And that was, I think it was like $600 something or something like that. And then I had no other income after that. My thoughts on funding was, what funding? I mean, you do need money though to be an actress. You really do. Like, it takes a lot of money. You know, you have to update your headshots every couple of months. Mm-hmm. You got to sometimes pay to meet with casting directors and agents. You got to get around still to auditions. You still got to eat and pay rent and all the things, you know? So I wasn't taking any of that into consideration, obvi, when I left my job. But then when I got to starting a production company even, I still was not thinking about funding. I started my production company to have income. Yeah. I wasn't like, oh, I gotta like buy stuff. Especially like you need a camera, you need like lighting, you need memory cards, you need external hard drives, you need lenses, you need so many things to have a production company. And that was just not in my mind. So that's where I started. I was like, what funding?
Yeah. For her, like as an actress, she is her business. Like to go into acting, she is the brand. Mm-hmm. So I think as a creative, sometimes you like, I'm myself. Like I am what I need to be successful. I just need to pour energy into my craft and that's it. But you don't think about, oh, I have to think about this like a business. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I run this? Yes, the goal is to make money, but you got to spend money to make money.
Yes. And I can definitely talk about that more in depth in another episode, just about how expensive it really is to be an actress, to pursue an acting career. And I don't want to say expensive like it's not an investment, because it is an investment. Everything you do, every audition you have, every time you got to change your hairstyle or like buy makeup or like all the little things that you don't really think about because you have to show up as your best self every time. Yeah. And that takes time and or money. I'll definitely talk about that more in depth, but my main goal was to network. That was the main thing that was on my mind, was like, I have to get exposure. Like I have to put myself out here. I have to let people know what it is that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I was like doing a little bit of modeling at the time as well. So I was signing up for indie fashion shows and just trying to get myself out there. Mm-hmm. That was more of where my focus was. Which is, networking is very important, but I still didn't have no money. And even when I was networking, shout out to LA Green. Her brand is called She Tech. She was the first conference that I went to after I left my restaurant job.
I remember She Tech.
She Tech is bomb.
It was bomb, y'all.
And I had to actually reach out to her. We have a funny story about how we met on Facebook. But I reached out to her on Facebook and I asked her for a free ticket because I had no money to go to her conference. I wrote her this long thing and I was like, I love what you're doing. I would really love to come to your conference, but I just quit my job. I don't have any money and I'm trying to build my network. Could I please have a free ticket to your conference? And she said, yeah. And she gave me a free ticket. It's so funny because when I tell her that now, she's like, I don't remember that. I'm like, oh my gosh, LA. Like, but she did. And it was so kind of her. And I met a lot of great people from going to her conference.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool.
Yeah. I just want to tell this quick story about how we became Facebook friends. So it's like, you know how like, Facebook will start suggesting friends for you. And I know it's not called Facebook anymore, but when it was called Facebook, this was back in 2016. They must have...
called Facebook no more?
Mm-mm.
What?
It's Meta.
What?
Well, if you didn't know, you just heard it here. Facebook is not called Facebook anymore. It is called Meta. Yep, they did a huge announcement. It's probably been at least...
For real? Where I've been working on my business.
Right. But yeah, like it must have suggested us to be friends. But one of us must have thought it said such and such is following you or something. So I was like, I reached out to her. I accepted her request. So it must have been me. I accepted her request. I thought she followed me and I just accepted the request. And then I reached out to her and I'm like, oh, thank you for friend requesting me. And she was like, I didn't request you.
She said, no, boo.
Yeah, you did. Like, I accepted your friend request. Like, that's how we became friends. She was like, I do not friend request people that I don't know.
She said, let it be known.
Wah, 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 wah. So that's how we became Facebook friends. And we always laugh at that to this day. I've known LA since 2016. She's an amazing person. She has She Tech Creatives. She's also has a docu-series actually that her and I are working on together. If you follow her at Hug a Kid Project on Instagram, you'll be able to find her. So, sister, let's hear about your views on funding in the beginning.
So, I came directly out of grad school. The first time I was actually making money was in my corporate job, like serious money. You know, you had campus jobs here and there in school, but this was the first job that I was like, I'm doing this adulting thing. I get paid. My bank account is not on zero. Like, so my mindset going into it was, you know, you just get money constantly. Like, it is a continuous thing. Whether you have a crappy week or a good week, the money is still gonna come. And so when I lost my job, my first thought was, oh snap, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay the bills? I don't think I had enough time to figure out how much I needed. I didn't think about any of the things. I didn't think about startup costs for a business. I was just like, oh, okay, now I'm starting a business. My creative mind was like, oh yeah, what's the design going to look like? I need to get some mood boards together. I went into design mode because that's what I'm used to. And I did not go into financial advisor mode or financial planner mode. I didn't think about, oh, you actually have to have startup money. Because when I left my job, I had some savings. And because I was let go, I had a severance. So that was like a little bit of money, but it was not enough to be like, oh, sis, start a business, you know?
Right.
It was like, oh no, be an adult and survive for a couple of months because you don't know what's going to happen after this. So my view of money was like, when I started the business, it wasn't about having the business be self-sustaining. It was like, oh, now I can do whatever I want and I have creative freedom. I didn't think of it as a situation where I could have financial freedom.
Ooh.
You see what I did there?
I see what you did there. I like that. Okay, sister, I hear you.
Gotta drop a few gems here or there.
Yeah. Yeah, mine was like, I need income. I found that later on where I could be creative and really enjoy like editing and videography. But my initial thing was like, I need money. I love that. You said that.
I started out freelancing too. I was doing a bunch of stuff on the side. I was making masks at the time, and I had just reconnected with an old colleague that I met in Philadelphia. Shout out to Miss Saunders. I started freelancing projects. That was a blessing. My financial worries were next level though. I worried every single day about, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay this month's bills? It was overwhelming, but I don't think I ever thought of the business side. I really just focused on my personal, like how am I going to survive personally? And I was throwing everything I could creatively at the business side. How we got our startup funds.
Ooh.
Yeah. The hustle is real right here.
It's so real and it takes a village.
Oh.
Let me just say that for me, it took a village. But sister, for you, yours was right on time. Like, talk about confirmation.
Confirmation to the max. I am telling you, if there was any doubt in my mind, God was like, reassurance.
Yes.
Reassurance, boo. Okay, so pre-job loss, okay, y'all. I was in a program, I was working on a project, and the project could be anything you wanted it to be. My idea at the time was Loman Moy, even though it wasn't called that. It was this project that I had in my mind. I was putting dates to things. I was putting timelines to things. I was setting goals, and I was really inspired by this project, y'all. I was like, this is dope. If this happens, it's going to be the bomb. Like, I was really excited about this. So one of the goals that I set for the project was to apply for this specific grant. It's called Hunter's Fund. I was like, let me just apply for it, see what happens. And so in July of 2020, I applied for this grant. It was a $5,000 grant, and I had to do a video. I had to put an application together. I had to do a bunch of writing. I submitted the application. A few months later, come September. By this time, I had totally forgotten all about this grant. Like, I wasn't thinking anything about it. The company I was working for was like, sis, we gotta let you go. And I was like, you know the whole story. I was crying. I was doing all the things. And so a few days after I had gotten let go, I went to my mailbox. I'm getting my mail. And I'm like, what is this huge package in my mailbox? And I open it, and it's like, oh, congratulations. We're so happy that you're a grant winner. And I was like, hold up. Hold the phone. Who's a grant winner? This is in the wrong mailbox. I was like, they done put something in the wrong mailbox. I done opened somebody else's mail. Like, and the crazy thing is, this is the grant that I applied for. This is the $5,000 that I had applied for back in July, y'all. Mm-hmm. It is September at this point. Mm-hmm. I am like overjoyed. I come into my apartment. I'm like, okay, Jade, look at this certificate. What does it say? Y'all, I look at the date that the certificate is signed. September 15th, 2020, the exact same day that I lost my corporate job. This certificate was signed congratulating me on being a $5,000 grant winner.
Isn't that crazy? Talk about confirmation.
Confirmation.
Insane. We were all like, what? What?
Y'all, it was so wild. Mm-hmm. So I was so overjoyed. I was crying. I was shouting. I was like, praise music needs to happen right on now. I turned my praise music on. God made it very clear. Mm-hmm. This is exactly where you need to be. So get yourself together, mm-hmm. and let's make this business happen, because this is it. This is the time. And I was like, it's the time.
Yes, that was so amazing. When she shared that with the family, it was unreal. It was just unreal. It was
the
amazing.
Texts were coming in hot.
Yes, that was such an awesome thing to be able to experience.
Yeah. And I was so grateful. Even after that, I was like, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to use it wisely. I had a budget. That is one thing that was required from the grant, to have a budget. So then that's when I started thinking, wow, the creative side is great. It is great for you to have a vision as a designer, but you have to have the business mindset as well. If you don't have the business mindset, you need to partner with someone who does, because you need to know the finances. You need to know the business side. You need to know everything outside of that creative sphere if you want this business to be successful.
That's so true. And I'm glad that you said that, because like creativity is only half of it when you have a business. There's so much more technical things that go into running a business. It's either you take some classes, whether you do it YouTube University or otherwise, or you learn as you go.
Webinar college.
Right. And like, I definitely learned as I went. I was not being like, I need to learn how to run a business. I was just like, okay, What would I price? What's my hourly?
Yeah.
Like, you know, just things like that. But I wasn't thinking about W-2s and LLCs and invoices, you know, all of that kind of stuff at all. So that was good that you had that in your mind. Probably because we had conversations and I was like, I didn't do none of that. I kept telling her that through her whole time. She's like, oh, I'm taking this webinar. I'm doing this thing. I'm taking this thing. I'm doing that thing. I'm like, yeah, I didn't do none of that.
And that's so funny because the way I went about it is not the way she went about it, and vice versa is not the way that, you know, other entrepreneurs in our family went about it. Like, everybody is so different. You gotta find your groove somehow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be unique to each person.
Yeah.
How your mind works and all that stuff.
Yeah. So what about you, sister? What was your journey like in the finance space?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so the first project I ever did was just a passion project. I wanted to make a docuseries about other women entrepreneurs that I knew. Empress Lanice, or she also goes by Jessica Lanice. She has Empress Lanice PR agency. Christina Rhea from Congested Cat Productions. She's a filmmaker. I also had Elike. I met her actually in the subway performing, and she was amazing. So I was like, that's definitely a different type of entrepreneurship right there.
Yeah.
So it was us four. We were like the four core people.
And core? Okay.
So I knew them and I was just like, wow, they're amazing. They inspired me. And I was trying to put together this docuseries. I filmed it on like this heavy black magic camera that I toted all around the city, filming them doing things. I even took it out to like deep in, I think it was Long Island. Christina was doing a film. I think she was filming her feature film about a donkey at the time. And I went all the way out to Long Island, took a train and a cab to get to her to film some behind the scenes stuff of her. I was like so serious about this docuseries. And I will probably still put out clips. Maybe I'll do like Patreon exclusive clips.
Okay.
From the docuseries.
Exclusives, y'all. She said exclusive.
Because I never released it. I want to do something with it though, because they, you know, gave their time. I did interviews with them. Oh, and I had one other woman on there, Lucy Jade Norris. I went to acting school with her. She was starting an on-camera technique class for corporate people, teaching people who aren't used to being on camera how to have an on-camera presence. But yeah, so that was my first project, passion project. But I was like, I'm not making no money off of this. Like, it's not the point. But it did give me some good practice with starting to shoot, like starting to, you know, play around with the camera. Even though that's not the camera I had now, it gave me experience of like how to work a camera. What are some of the functions on the camera and things like that. And then I had this independent talk show called the Indie NYC Show. Shout out to Gina Lou. She was like my co-host with the Indie NYC Show, and we would go around to different independent events in New York and interview actors and musicians and singers and songwriters and poets, whoever happened to be at these indie screenings or indie events. They were mostly film screenings. We would be like red carpet coverage or like event coverage type thing. So that was really great. Again, network. It was good to like build network, get to know people, get to know these event coordinators, get to know a lot of the artists that were there. But I still wasn't making no money.
You like, where the money at?
Where the money at? And you know, I said I was doing the modeling thing, but most of that stuff was free. So like I was not making any money, and I was like, I can't keep doing these things that I'm not making money for. But then I was starting to get nice. I was getting nicer and nicer, like with the camera. And actually Indie NYC happened after I went through my process. So my process, funding wise, starting my business was crowdfunding. I have to give a huge shout out to Christina Rhea of Congested Cat Productions, because she was the plug.
Hey, Christina.
She was the plug. Christina is a crowdfunding expert, and I say expert because she's done multiple crowdfunding campaigns for a lot of her films, and she hits her goal every single time. So she was a huge encouragement. I decided to go with Seed and Spark as a platform. There are other crowdfunding platforms out there, but Christina was familiar with Seed and Spark, so she highly recommended Seed and Spark. That's the platform she used for her crowdfunding campaigns. And the one thing that I personally liked about Seed and Spark, if you don't hit at least 80% of your goal, you don't get any of the money. So while that can be like a scary thing, it's actually huge motivation for you to hit your goal.
That's a lot of pressure though.
It was a lot of pressure, but her advice to me was do that because it's gonna definitely
push you.
Yeah. And she was like, I don't recommend you doing your crowdfunding campaign for any longer than 3 months. Anything after that, you're gonna be burnt out. Yeah. Especially because I didn't have a team behind me. It was just me. Normally when crowdfunding campaigns happen, there are a group of people who are brainstorming, coming up with, okay, what perks are we going to give away? How much are they going to be valued at? Like creating all of the content that you send to people that do contribute to your crowdfunding campaign. Like, cause sometimes a perk is like, you get a social media shout out. What does that shout out look like? Who's designing that shout out? And when there's a team of people, it's like you can delegate, but it was just me doing everything. She was like, since it's just you need to start creating those things now. And all you need to be doing is like updating the person's name. The graphic stays the same. You're just changing the name in the thank you to make it easier for you. She's like, okay, these are kind of like your markers. By this date, you want to be at this amount. By this date, you want to be at this amount. When it got close to the end and I wasn't almost at my goal, she called me like, Latresa, you're not going to make your goal. You need to direct message people. You need to make phone calls. You need to directly reach out to people and tell them what you're doing. Don't just assume that you're posting it and they see it and they think that you're talking to them. Specifically ask them to contribute. And I was so nervous. I am not the kind of person that asks people for anything. Perfect example is when I ended up with 11 cents in my account. Who knew that? I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't ask anybody for money ever. That's just not me. It was so hard for me to ask people for help.
And I think that's a good thing to point out. Like when you are working to be an entrepreneur, all of that in your mind, all of the negativity, all of the questioning of like, oh, am I good enough? Oh, should I ask this person for help? Should I just do it by myself? You got to get over that because you will be struggling.
Yes.
I'm telling you, you will be struggling. And there are so many times where the both of us are just like, I'll just figure it out on my own. I'll just figure it out on my own. I'll just do my own thing. And that can really hurt you.
Yeah, it can. Because you get so used to wearing all the hats that when you don't have to wear all the hats, you still try to wear all the hats. Because you just get so used to doing everything. You don't really learn how to delegate. You don't really learn how to ask for help. You just try to do everything. You try to be your own graphic designer. You try to be your own tax person. You try to be your own lawyer. All the things.
Your own lawyer, your own financial advisor, your own graphic designer, your own website designer,
your own social media person. And it's like, when do you have time to do the craft part?
You don't.
And make the money or the service part. It's like,
you don't. You got to choose one at that point. Because you got so many daggone hats in your closet.
Yes. So she really helped prepare me. Because she was like, yeah, it's just you're on the team by yourself. So she really helped prepare me. And when it got down to the wire, it was like the last like 48 hours. And she was like, Latresa, you girl. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it's funny because she has this monthly film screening series that she used to do called Indie Works. And I used to host it. I was at Indie Works maybe like 48 hours before my crowdfunding campaign was ending. And I left my charger to my phone. So I didn't have a phone charger. My computer was like, I don't know what was going on with my computer at the time, but it wasn't working. So my only way to reach out to people to continue to ask for contributions for my crowdfunding campaign was through my phone. So I had to like go to the deli, get a Get one of those cheap chargers that jack your phone up, because you know Apple don't play. You put a charger in there that ain't Apple, your whole phone be shut down, malfunctioning. You gotta get a whole new phone. I was running off of like low battery. The charger wasn't working properly, but I could not get up to go back to the deli to get something else because I was on the
You was on a crunch.
It was crunch time, y'all. And so it was very stressful. I'm so glad I didn't do it for more than 3 months because I definitely would have been burnt out. I think it definitely really helped to reach out to people directly and explain to them what I was doing and ask for help. I don't think I ever said what my goal was. My goal was $10,000. I ended up having 162 supporters and I raised $9,910.
She was working, y'all. She was working.
By myself with the emotional support of Christina, just being my biggest cheerleader in my corner, and community. Like my sisters were going so hard. Like my family was going so hard, like sharing my campaign on their social media platforms. And most times when I sent out the social media shout outs to people who did contribute, they reposted it on their pages so that their friends and family could see it. So that was extremely helpful. If it were not for my community, I would not have raise the funds to be able to start my business. And with that money, I was able to buy a camera. I was able to buy a lens kit. I was able to buy studio lights, green screens, and like backdrops and things like that. Because at the time, I was turning some of the rooms in my apartment into studio space that people could actually come to and film, you know, use for their personal film projects.
Yeah.
So I was able to do some repainting and get some cute little kind of like furniture pieces for people to use, like
for
set
like staging.
Right, for like staging, set design pieces. So I was able to do all of that with the funds. What I would recommend though, that I didn't do, anyone who's thinking about doing a crowdfunding campaign, put some money in there for you. I did not take $1 of that money. I spent every penny of that money on equipment.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should have gave myself something for
the labor.
For the labor, for all those hours that I, you know, spent just running the campaign.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was broke as a joke, like didn't even have food and I'm buying all this stuff. You know, at this point, I think I was able to, you know, get some groceries and stuff, but I did not even think about paying myself.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend that. And I also just want to note that I didn't actually raise 9,910 physical dollars. What happens with Seed and Spark is that people can also donate equipment to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you add the cost of that equipment that somebody donates to you to your total cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some of that $9,000 was equipment that people donated. Some friends of mine donated podcasting equipment, which came up to like $600.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody donated some lavalier mics to me. That got deducted from my goal. So it's not just the physical money, because a lot of people think I raised that much actual money, and I think it was somewhere maybe close to 7,000
of actual money.
Yeah, it was about 7,000 of actual money. And then the other two, almost 3,000 was donations, equipment donations. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think long story long, that was my process. And I'm very grateful. I never imagined myself doing anything like that. And it wasn't myself. It was a community of people that really had my back and really believed in what I was doing and believed in me as a person and as a creative. Just a great support system. And I could not be more grateful to every single person. Every one of those 162 people that donated, and it was like 190 some that like followed the campaign and just was like sharing stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Even to this day, thank you so much, because I would not have even been able to get started possibly had it not been for my village rallying behind me and supporting me.
Village. Yes.
Angel investors right there.
Yes. That is so amazing. because I think a lot of times this idea of solo entrepreneur, right? This idea of like, oh, I did it all myself. Oh, it was my labor. It was my vision, all the things. But seriously, if you are starting a business, you need a community. You need a village. You need people who are going to support you, who are going to share your content, even if they're not your customers, who are going to see your vision and like, yes, I totally get behind that. Like, I believe in this person. I believe they are going to do great things. And that really fuels you just to see the numbers go up, even if they're not donating. That encouragement, that verbal encouragement is really what keeps you going.
Yes. I even had somebody that I did not know from a can of paint. I don't even know why that's the same, but I like it.
I didn't know her from a can of paint.
What's that Keke Palmer saying when she says,
sorry to this man. I wouldn't know if I saw him. Sorry.
I would not know him if I saw him. That is real talk. I wouldn't know him if I saw him today. But he was my first large donation of my whole campaign. I forget when he contributed, but he contributed $500 whole to my campaign. And I don't know him. Never met him. And then I had one other person that's very dear to my heart, and I love her so much to pieces, that donated an equal amount to my campaign. So I had two really big supporters. So if anybody else has any questions about crowdfunding, or grants, we would love to help you out. Answer any follow-up questions. Please just send us a direct message on Patreon.
And I also want to say, for people who are starting businesses, don't ever let anyone tell you that there is not money out here. Because there is money out here.
Yes.
Money that you don't have to pay back. Loans are not the only option.
Yes.
There is money out here, and there are people who will support you, but you have to put in the work.
Yes.
Neither one of our experiences was just like, oh, someone just gave me money. We didn't grow up that way.
At all.
We didn't come from a family full of money.
No, ma'am, no, sir.
Like, let's make that clear. We do not come from a rich family.
At all.
There is money out here. There are people out here who will support you.
Yeah.
And you just have to search. And when you find it, you have to put in the work to get that money.
Yeah.
You might have the vision, but it's not your job to hold on to that vision. It's your job to share with everyone so that they can see and start supporting you, and so that your business grows and you can delegate tasks and you can do things to involve people in bringing your vision to life. I think there is, especially on social media, I don't know if this is the same experience for everyone else, but when I look at social media, I see so many people of like, I made this myself. I got here because of me, and claps to me. And it's like, yes, claps to you, but what about all those people who shared your content? What about all those people who bought your product or participated in your service? All of those people contribute to you being an entrepreneur and you growing your brand. And so for me, for Loman Moy, my mission is bigger than myself. So what does that look like if I take on all the things and then don't know how to delegate? Because the mission is to glorify God through fashion. And so to take on everything and then not spread the mission, it's like, I'm missing the point.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a really important thing. Just that nugget of information to share with y'all. Even if you're first starting out, find your community, find the people who support you, find the people who, even if they just give you encouragement, those friends that send you encouragement on a daily basis, surround yourself with those people so that you have accountability and you have have people behind you who are like, yes, I believe in that. I believe in that vision. I believe in that mission. I believe in that dream. And let's make it happen, sis.
That was a good tip. And I think it helps to be like, a good person. When you're a kind person, it pays off. I used to really always think I can't be too kind because people take that for a weakness, even though some people will and do. But I feel like in this instance, that was not the case. I feel like no one knew me as a videographer or a production person. I was an actress.
Yeah.
If it was really about them supporting me based off some kind of talent or skill that I already showed them that I had behind the camera, I don't know that I would have got no money. And I mean, I did put a video together like Jade did. I edited. I had help filming it because I was actually in the video, so I couldn't film it and be in it. Although you can do that these days. But all I had was that bulky Blackmagic camera at the time, so I wasn't filming myself on that camera. I did edit it, so I was able to kind of show that side. But I guess people believed in the mission, and people believed in me as a person. So I would just contribute that nugget onto what Jade said. I think the kind of person you are to people makes a difference, especially when you're talking about crowdfunding.
Yes.
And I like what she said too about, if your vision only includes you, it's probably not going to go too far. Like it should include other people and have to do with other people.
I'll say this one last thing too. Skill. Let's talk about skill real quick.
Girls only like guys with great skills. Question of the day, what movie is that from? If you know, drop it in the comments.
Hey, and become a patron. But skill, y'all. We don't have grant writing skill. We don't have crowdfunding skill.
Right.
That's something that you learn along the way. People ask, oh, it looks like you know what you're doing. Thank you. I don't.
Right. It's my first time.
Exactly. You gotta just work with what you have, and what you don't know, ask somebody and figure it out along the way. I'll say for me, in my situation, it was about faith. Growing up, I had experience in writing, going to school and just constantly writing, constantly applying for scholarships. That was my thing. I jumped into the grant writing so quickly because when I was applying for schools, scholarships was top priority. So even that experience, I won some, I lost some, but that knowledge of writing stuck with me, and storytelling stuck with me. You just gotta hone those skills, and if you don't have them, like we said before, YouTube University, webinar college, get into it and make it happen.
Absolutely. We thank you for hanging in with us for another episode.
Yes.
This has been the money episode. Money.
Hey,
money. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on Patreon, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Toodles.
Hey Sista Podcast is brought to you by the owners of Loam and Moy and Phenomenal Woman Media Group. Our mission is to share our stories about the realities of entrepreneurship and to help you along your journey to becoming your own boss.
Whether you're a newbie, advanced, or somewhere in between, we want to remind you that you are not alone. We hope to encourage you and give you insight as you navigate through the uncertainties of this unique and rewarding lifestyle. Thanks for listening. See you next time.